Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who break us. And sometimes, the ones we overlook are the ones who save us. This is the story of Daniel Hayes, a self-made millionaire, a man who built skyscrapers yet couldn't mend the cracks in his own heart. After losing his wife in an accident 3 years ago, Daniel's world was reduced to silence. Only his little daughter, Lily, kept him breathing, a fragile soul of 7 years. Carrying sadness in her smile, Daniel believed he had found new hope in Sabrina, a glamorous woman who seemed perfect on the outside. But one evening, everything shattered. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the mansion like a warning bell. Daniel froze at the doorway, his briefcase slipping from his fingers. He had come home early, hoping to surprise Lily with her favorite chocolate cake. Instead, what he saw stopped his heart. Sabrina stood towering over Lily, her voice sharp as a whip. "You clumsy brat, look what you've done." Orange juice dripped down Sabrina's silk dress, staining it like fire spreading across snow. And there, trembling on the marble floor, was Lily, her tiny hands shaking as tears welled in her eyes. Daniel's chest tightened. For months, he had ignored the little signals, the subtle fear in Lily's eyes whenever Sabrina raised her voice. But now there was no way to pretend. He saw it with his own eyes, the cruelty hidden behind Sabrina's perfect smile. Before Daniel could move, a gentle figure rushed forward. Maya, the maid, dropped the basket of laundry in her arms and knelt beside Lily. "Shh, sweetheart. It's okay. Breathe with me. 1, 2, 3. Her voice was steady, warm, like sunlight breaking through a storm. Lily clung to Maya's blouse, burying her face in safety. Daniel's world split in two at that moment. On one side was Sabrina, beauty, wealth, influence, the life he thought he needed. On the other side was Maya, humble, unnoticed, but with a heart strong enough to protect the one thing that mattered most, his daughter. And in that instant, Daniel knew everything was about to change. The night after Sabrina's mask slipped, Daniel barely slept. He paced the length of his study, staring out over the glowing skyline that once filled him with pride. The towers he built pierced the night sky like promises kept, yet inside his home, promises had been broken. He could still hear Lily's trembling voice echoing in his ears. "Daddy, am I safe?" That question carved deeper into him than any loss he had ever endured. He had sworn on the day his wife passed that nothing would harm their little girl, and now he had let a stranger into their lives who had left scars, not just on Lily's heart, but on his own conscience. Down the hallway, he could faintly hear Lily's soft whimpers, followed by Maya's gentle murmur. That sound was the only reason Daniel's chest loosened enough to breathe. Maya had stayed late, refusing to leave Lily's side until she drifted to sleep. He remembered the way his daughter clung to her, not out of habit, but out of instinct, like a child clings to the only shore in a storm. It startled him, realizing he had never once seen Lily lean on Sabrina the same way. In truth, Lily always seemed to shrink when Sabrina entered the room. But Daniel had convinced himself it was just shyness. Tonight tore that illusion apart. The next morning, Daniel tried to act composed. He brewed coffee, set Lily's favorite cereal on the counter, and forced a smile when she shuffled in wearing her pink pajamas. Her hair was messy, her eyes heavy, but she smiled back when she saw him sitting there. She climbed into his lap without a word, laying her head against his chest. That small, fragile act nearly undid him. He kissed the crown of her head and whispered, "You'll always be safe with me, princess." He meant it now more than ever. Maya entered quietly a few moments later, carrying a folded blanket. She looked tired but calm, her presence bringing a kind of stillness into the room. When her eyes met Daniel's, he saw something unspoken, their strength, but also warning. She hadn't told him what to do, hadn't judged him, but her silence carried weight. He realized she already knew what Sabrina was capable of long before he had seen it himself. That struck him harder than Sabrina's cruelty. How many times had Maya stepped in when he wasn't there? How many storms had she shielded Lily from in secret? Sabrina's absence the next few days brought a false peace to the house, though her shadow lingered like smoke after a fire. Daniel busied himself with work, but his thoughts kept circling back. Part of him wanted to believe Sabrina's excuses, to tell himself it had been a single mistake. But then he'd see Lily flinch when footsteps echoed in the hall or notice the way she clung to Maya whenever the front door opened, afraid Sabrina might return. Those little reactions told the truth his pride had tried to bury. One evening, as Daniel worked late in his home office, he heard laughter, genuine laughter floating from the living room. Curious, he set down his pen and followed the sound. There was Lily, sitting cross-legged on the floor with Maya, building a castle out of colorful blocks. Lily's face glowed, her laughter light and free, as Maya pretended the blocks were royal guards marching to protect a princess. The castle leaned dangerously to one side, and when it collapsed, Lily burst into giggles. Daniel froze at the sight. That was the first time he had heard his daughter laugh like that in years. Not a polite chuckle, not the hesitant laugh he had coaxed during weekends, but pure, unguarded joy. It hit him like sunlight breaking through clouds he didn't realize had been so heavy. Maya noticed him standing there and gave a small smile. "We're building the safest castle in the world," she said softly. Lily chimed in, "And no one mean is allowed inside, Daddy, only nice people." The innocence of her words sliced deeper than anything Sabrina had ever said. Daniel swallowed hard, nodding. "That sounds like the best castle ever built," he replied, his voice thick. That night, when Lily finally went to bed, Daniel lingered downstairs with Maya. The quiet between them was not awkward, but weighted with all that had been left unsaid. He wanted to thank her, but the words felt too small. He wanted to apologize for not seeing sooner, but apologies felt too late. Instead, he asked, "How did you know what to say to her? How did you calm her when?" His voice trailed off, unable to finish. Maya folded her hands, her eyes steady. "Children know when love is real," she said simply. "You can't fake kindness with them. They feel everything: fear, safety, hope." Lily just needed someone to show her that not everyone who raises their voice is stronger than she is. Her words lingered like a quiet revelation. Daniel realized in that moment that while he had been busy building skyscrapers for the world to see, Maya had been quietly helping rebuild the small, fragile world inside his daughter. The hook tightened around his heart. What if he had come home later that night? What if he hadn't seen it for himself? How much longer would he have let Sabrina's cruelty grow in the shadows of his blind trust? The thought made his stomach churn. He vowed then and there that he would never again ignore the signals, never again place his work or his pride above his daughter's well-being. But just as Daniel began to feel the faint stirrings of peace, the doorbell rang the following evening. Sabrina stood on the other side, flawless as ever, her smile polished but her eyes hard. She carried a bouquet of roses in her hands as if she could mask everything with red petals and perfume. Lily, spotting her from the staircase, froze like a deer caught in headlights, her small fingers tightening on the railing. Daniel saw the fear flash in his daughter's eyes before she bolted upstairs without a word. That single action silenced every excuse Sabrina was about to make. Sabrina's voice was sweet, rehearsed. "Daniel, please. We had a misunderstanding. I was under stress. I can make it right." But her words only sounded like cracks in glass about to shatter. Daniel didn't invite her in. He didn't yell. He simply said, "Lily deserves better." For the first time, Sabrina's smile faltered, replaced by a flash of something darker, something sharp. She leaned closer, her whisper dripping like poison. "You'll regret this. You'll see what happens when you throw away perfection for someone beneath you." Daniel shut the door before she could say more. His hands shook, but his resolve did not. He knew a storm was coming, one he couldn't predict. But when he turned back and saw Maya at the top of the stairs, holding Lily close, he also knew he wasn't facing it alone anymore. And somewhere deep inside him, a new question began to whisper, one he didn't dare answer yet. Could the woman who protected his daughter also be the one who could heal him? Rain swept across the city the following week, drumming softly against the tall glass windows of Daniel's home. The storm outside seemed to echo the storm inside him. Sabrina's visit still haunted his thoughts, her perfect smile, the venom hidden beneath it, the threat she had left hanging in the air. He wanted to believe she would vanish from their lives, but something told him she wasn't finished. People like Sabrina didn't simply let go when their pride was wounded. Yet for a short while, the house felt alive again. Lily was laughing more, sleeping better, and even humming to herself as she colored in the evenings. Her small voice filled the silence that once weighed heavily in every room. Daniel noticed how often she sought out Maya's presence, slipping into the kitchen to help her stir soup, curling up beside her during story time, or sneaking into her room just to sit and talk. For Lily, Maya wasn't just a maid anymore. She was safety, warmth, and a piece of family that had been missing since her mother's passing. Daniel tried to ignore the growing tug in his own heart when he looked at Maya. It wasn't just gratitude, though there was plenty of that. It was something quieter, deeper, something that unsettled him. He had built a life around control, blueprints, deadlines, and decisions, but this feeling defied all of it. He caught himself lingering in doorways longer than necessary, listening to the sound of Maya's laughter blending with Lily's. He noticed the way her hair slipped loose when she worked, or how her hands, though roughened by labor, carried a gentleness he had never seen before. One night, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel found himself on the balcony with Maya. She had stepped out for fresh air, her shawl pulled tight against the chill. The city lights stretched endlessly below them, glowing like constellations on Earth. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel said softly, "You've done more for Lily in weeks than I've managed in years." "I don't know how to thank you." Maya shook her head. "You don't need to thank me. She's a wonderful child. She just needed someone to remind her she's loved." Her words stung Daniel in a way he didn't expect. He had thought he was doing his best, but maybe love wasn't about providing the biggest house or the best schools. Maybe it was about being present, listening, holding her when she cried. Things he had let slip through the cracks while burying himself in work. Before Daniel could respond, a faint crash echoed from inside the house. He rushed back in, heart pounding, only to find the living room window ajar, the curtains billowing wildly. On the coffee table sat a single white envelope. His blood ran cold. Inside was a photo of him, Lily, and Maya taken without their knowledge. Across the bottom, scrawled in sharp ink, were the words, "She doesn't belong in your world. End this before I do." The room seemed to shrink around him. His worst fear had come true. Sabrina hadn't walked away. She was watching them, waiting, planning. Daniel clenched the letter in his fist, anger warring with dread. But when he looked at Lily's drawing on the table, a princess inside a castle, guarded by walls and smiling faces, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would protect her at any cost. The next days were filled with a strange tension. Daniel tightened security around the house, installed new locks, and instructed the staff to be cautious. Yet, he didn't tell Lily about the note. She had been through enough fear already. Maya noticed his unease and finally asked, "You're hiding something. Is it about her?" He hesitated, then handed her the letter. Her hands trembled slightly as she read, but her eyes hardened with resolve. "She won't hurt Lily," Maya said firmly. "Not while I'm here." Her certainty startled him. It wasn't bravado, it was truth, spoken from a place of fierce loyalty. For the first time, Daniel realized Maya wasn't just someone filling the gaps of a broken household. She was becoming the heart of it. One evening, Sabrina struck again. Not with violence, but with charm. She appeared outside Lily's school, waiting near the gate with a sweet smile and a gift in her hand. Lily froze when she saw her, her little fingers gripping Maya's hand so tightly it turned white. Sabrina crouched low, voice dripping with honey. "Lily, darling, I brought you a present. Don't you want to see it?" Lily shook her head, pressing closer to Maya. "I don't want to." Maya stepped forward, shielding Lily with her body. "You need to leave," she told Sabrina, her tone calm but unshakable. Sabrina's smile faltered, her eyes flickering with anger as parents nearby glanced over. "Careful," she whispered through clenched teeth. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Daniel arrived minutes later, his car screeching to a halt. When he saw Lily trembling in Maya's arms, something inside him snapped. He strode to Sabrina, his voice low and steady, but his eyes ablaze. "This ends now. Stay away from my daughter, from my home, from my life." Sabrina's expression hardened into something cold, almost unrecognizable. "You think you can replace me with her?" She spat, flicking her eyes toward Maya. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." Daniel didn't flinch. He pulled Lily close, his arm protective around her shoulders. "The only mistake I made was letting you near us in the first place." With that, he turned his back on her, walking away with his daughter and Maya by his side. Sabrina's furious silence followed them like a storm cloud ready to break. That night, after Lily had finally fallen asleep clutching Maya's hand, Daniel sat alone in the dimly lit living room. His heart was heavy, but beneath the weight was a strange clarity. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about business deals or appearances. He was thinking about love, real love, the kind that heals instead of hurts, the kind that builds instead of destroys. He thought about the way Lily smiled when Maya was near, the way his own soul felt steadier in her presence. And though he wasn't ready to say it aloud, he knew the truth was slowly unfolding inside him. But Sabrina's shadow still loomed, and deep down, Daniel feared that the worst was yet to come. The days after Sabrina's attempt at the school passed in a fragile calm. But it was the kind of calm that feels like the air before a storm. Daniel knew it, Maya sensed it, and Lily, though she never spoke it, clung tighter to both of them, as if her small heart could feel danger circling closer. The mansion that once felt like a fortress now seemed to have cracks, and Daniel found himself checking every window, every shadow, as though Sabrina's presence lingered in the corners. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of fire, Daniel sat with Lily on the balcony. She was sketching in her notebook, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. He leaned over to see what she was drawing and felt his breath catch. It was a picture of three figures holding hands, a tall man, a little girl, and beside them, a woman with gentle eyes. The three of them stood inside a castle, smiling. Underneath, in Lily's neat handwriting, she had written, "My family." Daniel swallowed hard. "Who's that?" he asked softly, pointing at the woman. Lily smiled without hesitation. "That's Maya. She makes me feel safe." The words pierced his heart with both pain and warmth. Pain because his daughter had needed that safety so desperately. Warmth because she had finally found it. He kissed the top of her head, hiding the emotion that burned behind his eyes. Later that night, unable to sleep, Daniel wandered into the kitchen. He found Maya sitting at the table, a book open in front of her. She looked up, surprised, but her smile was calm. He sat across from her, and for a while they said nothing, just listening to the ticking clock. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Do you ever regret staying here? Being pulled into all of this?" Maya shook her head. "No, I've seen darkness before, Daniel. But I've also seen how much love can change someone's world. Lily is proof of that. If my being here gives her light, then it's worth it." Her words were simple, but they struck him harder than any speech. She wasn't here out of obligation or for what she might gain. She was here because her heart had chosen to stay. Before Daniel could answer, a loud knock rattled the front door. It was nearly midnight. His pulse raced as he stood, signaling Maya to stay back. He opened the door to find an officer standing there, rain dripping from his uniform. "Mr. Hayes, there's been an incident." Daniel's chest tightened. "What incident?" The officer explained that Sabrina had been involved in a heated altercation at an upscale restaurant. Her words had been reckless, loud enough that patrons overheard her making threats about ruining a man's life and taking back what's hers. Though she hadn't named Daniel, the police had reason to believe she might cause trouble. They advised him to stay alert. When the officer left, Daniel shut the door slowly, his mind spinning. Sabrina wasn't backing down. She wasn't just hurt, she was dangerous. He turned to find Maya watching him, worry shadowing her face. "What did he say?" she asked. He hesitated, then told her the truth. Maya's lips pressed into a firm line. "She won't stop until she feels like she's won." But she doesn't know something, Daniel. She doesn't know that love always finds a way to be stronger than fear. Her quiet strength steadied him in a way nothing else could. For the first time since this began, he felt a spark of hope, like maybe together they could withstand the storm. The next day, Daniel decided to give Lily a moment of normalcy. He cleared his schedule and took her and Maya to the park. It was a simple afternoon: swings, ice cream, laughter, but it felt priceless. Daniel watched as Lily ran ahead, her curls bouncing, her giggles ringing like bells. Maya chased after her, both of them laughing so hard it echoed across the grass. Daniel stood back, taking in the scene. For years, he had lived in a house of silence. Now, with these two, it was filled with music again. But just as he let himself breathe, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Enjoy your little outing. Castles Fall, Daniel. Remember that. His blood went cold. He looked around the park, scanning the faces, the cars, the shadows under the trees. Someone was watching them. He pulled Lily close, his protective instincts roaring to life. Maya's eyes met his, wide with alarm, but she stayed calm for Lily's sake, whispering a story to distract her as they hurried back to the car. That night, after Lily was asleep, Daniel sat in his study, the threatening message still burning in his mind. Maya entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of tea. She set one in front of him and sat across from him, her presence grounding. He stared into his cup before finally speaking. I don't know how to fight someone like her. She has no limits. Maya's voice was steady. Then we show her that love has no limits either. You protect Lily with everything you are, and I'll do the same. She can't break what we refuse to let her touch. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her. In her eyes, he saw not just loyalty, but something deeper, a fire that refused to be extinguished. He realized then that Maya wasn't simply a maid who had stepped into their lives. She was the anchor holding them steady, the bridge leading them back to light. As the storm outside raged against the windows, Daniel made a silent vow. No matter what Sabrina tried, he would not let fear win. He would not let darkness claim his daughter's smile again. And though he couldn't yet admit it aloud, he knew his heart was no longer his own. It had already begun to belong to the woman who had saved his daughter, and perhaps was saving him too. But far away, in the shadows of the city, Sabrina was watching, planning, waiting for the moment to strike. And when she did, Daniel knew the choice he made would change all of their lives forever. The night air was still, too still, the kind of silence that made Daniel uneasy. He sat in his study, papers spread across the desk, but his eyes were fixed on the shadows shifting outside the window. Ever since the message at the park, his nerves hadn't settled. Sabrina was out there somewhere, watching, waiting. He had promised himself that he wouldn't let fear rule his life. Yet it was hard to ignore the feeling that danger was pressing closer with every hour. Upstairs, Lily slept soundly, her stuffed bear tucked in the crook of her arm. Daniel checked on her twice, each time finding Maya sitting beside the bed, humming softly until Lily drifted into deep sleep. It struck him that Maya had become more than a protector for his daughter. She had become a guardian of peace, weaving calm out of chaos. Daniel lingered in the doorway, watching the scene with a kind of aching gratitude, before quietly stepping back. The following morning seemed ordinary, almost deceptively so. Lily chattered excitedly about her art project for school. Maya packed her lunch, and Daniel promised to be home early. But halfway through the day, everything shifted. His phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, a voice he knew too well slid through the line. You can't ignore me forever. Daniel, Sabrina said, her tone calm but carrying an edge that made his skin crawl. You think you've won? You think that woman belongs in your world? You'll see how quickly your perfect little castle can fall. Daniel's jaw tightened. Stay away from us, Sabrina. This is over. She laughed softly, the sound sharp as glass. Over? No, Daniel. This is just beginning. The line went dead. He rushed home earlier than planned, his instincts screaming. The moment he stepped into the house, he felt it an unnatural quiet, heavy as lead. Lily, Maid. He called, his voice sharper than he intended. No answer. His pulse thundered in his ears as he hurried through the rooms until he reached the living room. There, on the table, sat another white envelope. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single photograph, Lily standing at the school playground, her small figure captured from afar. Scribbled across the back were the words, "Every fortress has a door." Panic surged through him. He bolted for the stairs, nearly colliding with Maya as she emerged from Lily's room. "What's wrong?" she asked quickly, reading the fear in his eyes. He showed her the photo, and her face went pale. Without hesitation, she pulled Lily into her arms and held her tight. "She won't touch her," Maya whispered fiercely, though her voice trembled. That night, Daniel doubled security, installing cameras, reinforcing doors, hiring guards to watch the property. Yet even with the extra protection, sleep was impossible. He sat awake, watching the monitors, his body tense. At some point, Maya entered the study, her shawl wrapped tightly around her. She placed a cup of tea beside him. "You can't keep watch every second," she said gently. "Fear is what she wants. Don't let her win by living in it." Daniel looked at her, exhaustion etched into his features. "How do you stay so calm? She threatened you, too. She hates you most of all." Maya's eyes softened, though they carried a sadness. "Because I've faced storms before. I know that no matter how dark they seem, they pass. What matters is holding on to what's worth protecting. For me, that's Lily, and maybe you, too." The quiet weight of her words sank deep. Daniel's throat tightened, but he said nothing, afraid his voice would betray more than he was ready to admit. Instead, he simply nodded, letting the warmth of her presence push back the cold. The calm didn't last. 2 nights later, a loud crash split the silence. The sound of shattering glass sent Daniel racing downstairs. The kitchen window had been smashed, shards glittering on the floor. The guards rushed through the house, but whoever had done it was gone, leaving behind only a single rose lying among the broken pieces. A calling card. A warning. Lily awoke screaming, terrified by the noise. Maya scooped her up, whispering softly, rocking her until the sobs slowed. Daniel stood nearby, fists clenched, fury burning through him. He had built towers to withstand earthquakes, yet he couldn't stop one woman from shaking the very foundation of his life. The following day, Daniel met with his lawyer to discuss legal action, restraining orders, anything to stop Sabrina. But as he left the office, he caught sight of her across the street. She stood there in the crowd, dressed flawlessly as always, her smile calm, almost amused. She raised her hand in a mock wave before disappearing into the throng of people. It wasn't just defiance, it was a message. She wasn't afraid of courts or laws. She believed herself untouchable. That night, Daniel finally let his walls crack. Alone with Maya, after Lily had gone to bed, he confessed the truth. "I'm terrified. Not for me, for Lily. I can't lose her. She's all I have left." His voice broke, raw with a pain he had buried for years. Maya reached across the table, her hand covering his. "You won't lose her. She's stronger than you realize. And so are you. You've built towers for strangers, Daniel. Now it's time to build one for her, a fortress no one can break." Her words lit something in him. Not just determination, but a flicker of hope. For the first time, he believed they could survive this. Not by hiding in fear, but by standing together. But as he walked Maya to her room that night, a strange feeling settled over him, a whisper of dread he couldn't shake. Sabrina had escalated from words to warnings, from threats to breaking glass. He knew what came next would not be subtle. She was waiting, plotting, and when she struck again, it would test everything: his strength, his love, and the fragile trust growing between him and the woman who had saved his daughter. And in the quiet hours before dawn, Daniel finally admitted to himself what his heart had known all along. If he lost Maya, it would not just wound him, it would shatter him completely. The days leading up to the final confrontation felt like a suspended breath. Daniel couldn't shake the tension in the air. Every knock on the door, every shadow in the hallway, made his chest tighten. Lily had grown more alert, clinging to Maya at every turn, sensing the threat even if she couldn't name it. Daniel knew he had to act, not out of anger, but to protect the fragile peace they had fought to build. That evening, a storm rolled across the city, lightning splitting the sky like jagged knives. Daniel and Maya sat in the living room, Lily tucked safely between them on the couch. The rain hammered against the windows, a relentless reminder that the world outside could be as chaotic as the fear Sabrina carried inside her. He wrapped an arm around both of them, feeling their small warmth against the cold wind. "We'll face this together," he whispered, more to himself than to them. Just as he spoke, the doorbell rang, slicing through the room like a blade. Daniel's heart jumped. He motioned for Maya to stay with Lily and approached the door slowly, eyes scanning the darkened street. There, framed by the storm, stood Sabrina, drenched but unbowed, her eyes flashing with determination. In her hand, she held a small box, and her lips curved into that familiar, unnerving smile. "Daniel," she called, voice steady, carrying over the wind. "You can't hide from me forever. Open it. You'll understand what's at stake." Daniel's fingers curled into fists. "This ends tonight, Sabrina. Leave now, or I call the police." She laughed softly, a sound sharp as broken glass. "Police can't fix what's broken inside hearts. I know you've chosen someone else, but before you settle into your little fairy tale, you should see the truth." She tossed the box onto the porch. It landed with a soft thud, as if daring him to open it. He hesitated for a heartbeat, then lifted it. Inside was a single photograph: Lily, asleep in her room, Maya beside her, and Daniel himself watching over them. The message written beneath it was simple, chilling. "You can protect her, but can you protect yourself?" Daniel's hands shook, but he didn't let fear take hold. He looked at Sabrina standing defiantly in the rain, and for the first time, he saw not a woman scorned, but someone consumed by control. That realization gave him clarity. She thrived on fear and manipulation. She had no real claim, no true power over the heart of his home. He stepped forward, rain dripping from his coat, and locked eyes with her. "You have no power here," he said, voice calm but firm. "Lily's safe. Maya is here, and I won't let you hurt them. Not now, not ever." Sabrina's expression flickered, just for a moment, and Daniel sensed hesitation. That brief crack was all the opening he needed. With a decisive movement, he picked up his phone and called the authorities, not to fight her directly, but to ensure she couldn't approach his family again. While waiting for backup, he turned back to the house and called out to Maya, "Come on, Lily, inside." Now Maya guided Lily safely into the foyer, holding her hand tight. The storm outside raged, but inside, for the first time in days, there was a sense of unity. Daniel positioned himself between the door and the two women he loved most, ready for whatever Sabrina might attempt next. When the authorities arrived minutes later, Sabrina's bravado finally faltered. She was escorted away, her threats dissolving into the night as the rain soaked her perfectly styled hair. Daniel watched silently until the flashing lights faded and she disappeared from sight. Only then did he breathe, finally allowing himself to feel the weight of what had passed. In the quiet that followed, he knelt in front of Lily, brushing a damp curl from her forehead. "You're safe, princess," he said softly. She smiled, sleepy but relieved, and hugged him tightly. "I know, Daddy. I knew you'd keep me safe." Then Daniel looked at Maya, really looked at her, and for the first time, he allowed himself to speak the truth he had been holding back. "I don't just want to thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. You've saved her, and you've saved me too." Maya's eyes softened, and she reached out, touching his hand gently. "We've all saved each other," she replied. "You just needed to see it." Daniel realized, in that quiet, rain-soaked night, that love wasn't about grand gestures or wealth or appearances. It was about presence, protection, and the courage to stand for someone else. Maya had shown him that, and together, they had faced darkness and come through stronger. Days passed, and slowly the storm outside mirrored the storm within. Lily laughed again, freely this time, building castles of blocks and imagining worlds where no one could hurt her. Daniel began to see the beauty in simple moments, the way Maya's eyes lit up when Lily showed her a drawing, the warmth of her voice reading bedtime stories, the quiet strength she offered without ever asking for praise. And as the city lights blinked in the distance one evening, Daniel understood that the real victory wasn't in keeping Sabrina away. It was in the bonds they had forged, the trust and love that now held them together. The woman who had once been a stranger in their home was now a part of their family, and his heart, long closed and fractured, had begun to heal, for Daniel, for Lily, for Maya. The night no longer carried fear. It carried hope, and as he held both of them close, he finally whispered the words he had kept hidden for so long. "You too. You're my world." And in that moment, as rain turned to soft mist and the city settled into quiet slumber, Daniel knew that no storm, no threat, and no darkness could ever break the fortress of love they had built together.